Okay, so today I'm picking up from my last Doctor Who video where I am counting down my top 10 character options classic series Doctor Who figures. In the first part I looked at aliens and monsters, and this time I'm going to be taking a look at doctors and companions. As ever, I'm striving to judge based purely on the figure itself rather than any associations or fondness I have for the characters or the costumes in the TV show. So I'm trying to judge on the merits of the figure itself. Okay, so first up we have at number 10, the 5th Doctor, but with hat. Now, I have to be honest, I've never been a huge fan of the 5th Doctor's look, and the first release of this figure without the hat, I wasn't overly struck with, to be honest. I thought it was a nice rendition of what we see on the show, but it wasn't particularly exciting to me. It didn't look visually that interesting. But that all changed with this release. Somehow, strangely, the addition of the hat really makes a huge difference to this figure. I actually really love this figure now, and I'm almost at a loss to explain it really, because the base figure is pretty much the same as the standard release, but somehow, for me, the addition of the hat just adds a little bit more interest, a little bit more colour with the rim, the red rim around the hat, and it just looks much more interesting. The likeness is pretty strong, the paint apps are nicely applied, and I think we have a really nice rendition of the 5th Doctor here. And while certainly the costume might feel a little bit bland in terms of its colours because it is so beige, the red trim and the touch of celery there add some much needed colour to this figure, make it look much more interesting. Also, it's nice that the pullover is nicely finely detailed and is a softer cream colour as well. So overall, there feels actually like there's quite a lot of different colours going into this figure upon closer inspection. And oddly enough, over time, this figure's become one of my favourites now. Okay, at number 9, I have Leela, and this is the Leela from the Invasion of Time 2-pack. Whilst the merits of Leela's costumes in the TV show can be argued, I think purely in terms of the action figure, this Invasion of Time costume works really well. It's a lot more colourful, being that brighter beige, and there's some nice attempts to have some little paint apps here and there to just enhance it with an extra layer of depth and interest with a lighter brown that runs through it, working into some of the stitching and things like that, which looks really quite good and looks quite effective and detailed. And even in the hair, there's two tones going through it, which give it a much more realistic feel. That said, I will concede that the head sculpt isn't fantastic. I don't know if this is a really strong likeness. It's definitely a passing likeness and I think it works okay, but I think what really detracts from it is actually the hairpiece, because you may notice there's that second line there, and that is because Character Options made this figure with the mind of swapping the hair out for a variant later on when she has the hair tied back in Image of the Fendal. But I really like the articulation scheme in this figure. She has the ball jointed shoulders which allow the arms to kick up and out to the side, which is kind of revolutionary for these figures at this time. And she just has a much greater range of motion than even say the 4th Doctor or the Sontaran have in this line. Likewise, I really like that she has the blade in her pouch as well, which is removable. I think this is a nice little touch, and although it's not the most detailed blade in the world, it is very cool and it's very prop accurate, which is brilliant. And it fits perfectly into her grip as well, because she does have very small hands and she holds onto this perfectly well. It's nice and tight, and yeah, with the other hand with the palm stretched out like that, I think this really captures the spirit of the character. The other thing that's really cool about this release is this prop that it comes with, which is the big, I can't remember what it's called, but it's a big gun, basically. Now, I don't remember whether Leela actually holds this in the TV show, but I do remember the 4th Doctor definitely does use it. But nevertheless, Leela can hold it, and it looks pretty cool. Again, considering her very small grip, she's able to hold the barrel of this and support it with her other hand, and it looks really cool. At number 8, I have the 6th Doctor in his real-time outfit. This variant was pretty tricky to pick up. Initially, he was released as an exclusive to begin with, and then later reissued as part of the 13 Doctors box set. But he is more or less just a repaint of the standard release 6th Doctor. So why is he appearing on this list? Well, primarily this is the first time that Character Options explored Big Finish. And for those of you who aren't already aware, Big Finish produced many hundreds of Doctor Who stories featuring classic Doctors on audio. So it's quite exciting to have a figure based on his audio adventures, and it also helps to canonise those adventures in the minds of fans, I suppose. But crucially, this audio in particular is very interesting because it introduced the idea of the Doctor wearing a slightly different costume to the one we see on screen in the TV show. His on-screen costume is largely not well received by fans or the general public. And this was an effort and an attempt to give the Sixth Doctor a different costume that was more or less the same, but it just had a more tasteful colour scheme, and it works really, really well. It's also significant because an animated series went hand in hand with this audio. It was an exclusive to online web series made by the BBC, with the production being done, of course, by Big Finish. So this release feels quite authentic and quite legitimate in many ways. And as I said, it feels like a really fun variant for the Sixth Doctor because he doesn't have that many different options within the TV show. He was always pretty much in that one costume. And this is a nice chance to see him in a different light, in a different costume, and it looks very visually striking. Okay, appropriately enough, at number 7 I have the Seventh Doctor, and specifically this is the Doctor with his white coat and white hat. Now, regardless of how you may feel about the Seventh Doctor and his era, I don't think there's any denying that this is quite an interesting and cool visual toy. One of the things that I think really helps this figure is the scaling of him, because he's significantly shorter than the other figures in this line, and he's quite interesting because of that. He stands out. And I really love this head sculpt in particular, because we've had a couple of variants and we seem to get the non-smiling version of the Seventh Doctor quite a lot, but I really like the flavour and the personality that the grin gives this figure, and it definitely captures that sense of the Seventh Doctor. And I think the likeness and the paint apps are really nicely applied, and there's just something very visually interesting about it. Also, I really want to commend character options on the paint apps on this figure because it's so detailed and it's so well applied with very minimal smudging anywhere. It's quite an achievement. If you think about the detailing on his scarf, his pullover, his tie, his handkerchief, there's a lot going on in this figure. Even the loop hoop there is very finely painted and it looks really, really good. Like, it's so visually striking, and there's so many colours going on here, even in the pants, that make it look really just visually arresting and just eye-grabbing. And the final thing I want to mention is his umbrella, because again, this is very nicely sculpted, it's nicely painted, but it just marks such a difference in this line to have a Doctor come with an accessory that isn't a sonic screwdriver or some variation on that. So it's really cool to have something very distinctive and very unique to the Seventh Doctor. At number 6, I have Sergeant Benton. Now, he's a fairly recent release. He came as part of a B&M exclusive pack last year in 2020. And there's a couple of different reasons why I really like this figure. First of all, it's really nice to have some representation of unit. Benton wasn't a companion, but he was a strong, reoccurring, regular character in the series in the early 1970s with John Pertwee's Doctor. But he also works as just a generic unit soldier as well. And if, like me, you like to army build, then this set was perfect for that. The likeness is really very strong, and the paint apps are really nicely applied. Little details like the unit logo on the cap and on the arms are really well realised, and also the texture of this figure is really quite nice as well. It seems to have used a sort of soft rubber for a lot of the points, and it works really quite well. He has this rubber overcoat for the tunic, which is very detailed. It's got all these pouches, and it just feels quite nice to the touch, and it looks and feels really authentic to what we see on screen. Plus, I've always been such a huge fan of this shoulder articulation that allows the arms to kick up and out. It really enhances these figures. Plus, he comes with a really cool assault rifle, and it doesn't get better than that. Okay, by the time we get to my top 5, things start to get a lot tricky in terms of who should come where, but I have the Brigadier, and specifically the Brigadier from the Three Doctors set. So we've had a couple of different variants of the Brigadier across the years, so why this one in particular? Well, for a start, I really like this outfit. This is the one I most closely associate with the Brigadier. And what's starting to feel like a running theme across this video is that he also has the hat as well, which I think really just complements the look. This outfit in particular just feels and looks authentic, but also quite distinctive and different to anything else that we see in this line, so it really stands out on the shelf. I also think that the likeness is really, really well done. Like, it looks fantastic to me. I could not fault this. It always amazes me how character options are able to nail some of these likenesses, considering the scale is so small, yet they do such a fantastic job with it. And once again, the paint apps are really well applied, and it just looks really professional. And here we can see a close-up of some of the work that's going on in the torso. Both the sculpt is really good, but all the attention to detail in terms of the paint apps are just spot on. The gold buttons, the buckles, the military badges at the top, the everything about this just really works together. We have the unit logo on the side of the arm, which is really well done, and then of course we have the gun holster, which is a slightly different colour. It just sets it off, and it just looks really, really nice visually. And then we can factor in the fact that he has really brilliant articulation. He has that shoulder articulation there that allows his arms to kick out, and it just creates lots of different dynamic poses, which is really important for this character, and it looks really, really effective. Plus, he also comes with his handgun, which is kind of cool, and he also holds it perfectly, and his finger there goes through the trigger and rests on it, and it just looks fantastic. Now, at number 4, I have the Third Doctor in his red blazer. Now, the Third Doctor had many different outfits, and of all the Doctors, probably the most colourful in the variation and amount of costumes that I actually wore across the years. Most were variations on a theme, so what's so special about this one? Well, it was worn in a few key stories. It's probably the brightest and most colourful version of the Third Doctor out there, and crucially, it has some very different patterning to the front of the jacket. It actually buttons up at the front there, and we can see the black buttonholes, and it just has a slightly different look to it than the other variants in this line. Now, I should point out that he's also been a pretty tricky one to track down. He's been released twice now. The first one, he was released in the 13th Doctor's set, and you'll notice he had the black bow tie. He was then subsequently re-released as a tweaked variant for a special B&M set that came with the TARDIS. The key difference with this variant is the fact that he didn't have the bow tie, but he has the white cravat instead. It's difficult for me to decide which one I think is my personal favourite. I would probably opt for the white cravat. But either way, this is a pretty fantastic looking figure due to the fact that it's so colourful. The likeness is very strong. That head sculpt has always been very, very good of Pertwee anyway. And its scarcity also makes it pretty attractive as well, because it is one of those jewels in the crown that's really hard to track down and get hold of. Number 3, I have Ace. And this was the first release of Ace based on her appearance in Remembrance of the Daleks. Straight away, this is a visually really arresting figure because there's so much going on in it, and it uses a lot of new parts, or at least new at the time, which made it look visually different and interesting. So first off, I think the likeness is pretty good. The head sculpt is very strong. I think the paint apps are a little bit wobbly on mine, especially in the eyes. One of them looks slightly off a little bit, but otherwise I think this is a very nicely rendered sculpt and likeness of this character. But one of the key selling points for me is the sculpt on the rest of the body, because obviously Ace is wearing that big puffy jacket that she wears in the show, and this requires all new parts. So it's brand new arms, it's a brand new rubber casing over the top of the figure, and it looks really good. It looks very distinctive, it looks very different to what we see in the rest of the line, and it's also very, very colourful. Despite being mainly black, all the badges and little details seem really accurate and really nicely and well painted. So again, top marks to character options for being able to get this level of detail in there and just do it without smudging it or messing up the logos, I think is really commendable. And this carries through right to the reverse of the figure as well, because as you can see, the ponytail is sculpted in there. It looks like it was intended to be a removable piece in case they were going to do a different kind of head at some point, but nevertheless, it still looks really well done. It's nicely painted, and of course, the Ace logo on the back of the jacket is really vibrant and colourful and looks spot on. But one of the absolute best things about this figure is the sheer amount of accessories she comes with, because as we know, Ace was an action-packed character, and pleasingly she comes fully loaded. So first of all, she has this backpack, and it's really cool because again, it's nicely sculpted, nicely painted, but it's actually also interactive in the sense that you can take it off and you can actually put things inside it. And there's this great little hole to allow the baseball bat to stick out at the top. And speaking of the baseball bat, here it is, again looking very authentic to what we see on screen, and she holds it really quite well in that grip there as well, which is fantastic. So this looks really very, very cool. She also comes with 3 canisters of Nitro 9 as well. So again, this is a really fantastic character detail object that we get, which is just really fun and exciting to have, and these fit perfectly into the backpack as well. And as if all that wasn't enough, she also comes with the rocket launcher, which, it doesn't get better than this really in terms of, weapon accessories. And again, it's nicely painted. It actually has a removable head at the top here as well. And overall, I just think it's fantastic. She holds it nicely in her grip. And for me, it's just through and through a really fun figure. It's everything a toy should be, and I love it. Okay, at number 2, I have the 4th Doctor, and specifically, it's the Pyramids of Mars 4th Doctor. Now, just like the 3rd Doctor, Character Options have released countless variants of the 4th Doctor, and most, if not all, are really, really good. So what sets this one apart? Well, I freely admit part of this is because this is the costume I most closely associate with Tom Baker's Doctor, but it also has a lot to do with the head sculpt. So for a start, the likeness is very good. As you can see here, they've managed to capture all the laughter lines around the eyes, and there's enough detailing on the teeth in the grin to just make this look really authentic to what we see on screen. But more than that, it's that this is actually quite a rare sculpt. Having the 4th Doctor smiling and laughing like this isn't something we see in subsequent releases. Very often they went for the more serious face in a lot of the other variants. So this feels quite fresh and quite original and quite different for the line. And it's really nice that it's captured Tom Baker's fun side. Also, once again, there was a danger that this could have ended up looking like quite a drab figure, given that the vast bulk of the colour of this costume is the very dark brown of the coat and the brown of the hat. But actually, the colour scheme and the paint apps of the tie and the vest underneath, combined with the multicolours of the scarf, is really visually striking. So actually this figure feels much more colourful than it probably should, and it's quite vibrant and fun. And for me, more than any other figure, any other variant in this line, this is the one that best captures the 4th Doctor. Okay, so top of my list at number 1, I have the 2nd Doctor, and it's the 2nd Doctor, of course, that was the exclusive release through the Character Options website from the Abominable Snowmen. Now, I have to start off by saying I'm not a huge fan of 60s Doctor Who, although I have love and affection for this era. It's really not my favourite, and so it's something of a surprise to me and a testament to how well made this toy is that it made it this high on my list. So what's so special about this figure? Well, it's the first legitimate variant we have of the 2nd Doctor. Now, there have been a few tweaks here and there, but this is the most significant one. And that mostly comes down to the fact that he's wearing his big fairy overcoat. Now, in some ways, this should work against the figure because it actually hinders a lot of the articulation, especially in the legs. But that said, the actual coat is actually really nicely textured. It has this nice feel to it, and for the most part, it's really nicely painted as well. Now, it's not perfect, but it is really nicely done. And once again, there's just something uniquely interesting about this variant because it's unusual in the collection. The shape, size, texture, all of it combines really nicely to create something pretty unique and special in the collection. And the final icing on the cake for me is the fact that he comes with an electronic classic TARDIS. And again, this TARDIS has its own merits because it's quite distinctive and unique. The doors are the wrong way around, for example. But I also really love the sound effects and the way the lamp glows. That sort of strange yellow is really nice. And I freely admit I might be biased because this was only released this year and I've been so impressed with it and it's been on my shelf all this time that it might be clouding my judgment. But for me, it's a real strong contender. So there you go, there's my top 10 Doctors and Companions. Please let me know in the comments what you think, whether you agree or maybe I missed someone or maybe you thought I should have swapped someone out. Do let me know. It's all part of the fun, swapping ideas and hearing other people's thoughts. So I look forward to seeing your comments later, and until the next time, stay safe and take it easy. If you enjoyed this video, please do give it a like and remember to subscribe as there'll be plenty more videos soon.